Welcome everyone to our today's webinar featuring top 30 finalists of our project of top 30 studio professionals. Today, we're going to talk about the next big thing, about the next innovative idea, about the next amazing project that our studio leaders, studio operations, photographers are working all over the world. But before I get to invite our first presenter on stage, I actually want to know a little bit about what you're all doing today, and especially what you're all doing to recharge and reset this summer. So just type into the chat, where are your vacations planned for? For example, myself, I'm going to go to the south of France, to Provence. So if anyone got any tips on what I should do and where we should go, where we should drive around, I will greatly appreciate that in LinkedIn messages or right here in the chat. So type away where you're going this summer. And also type away any questions or comments or thoughts about what our presenters are sharing during this webinar. It's I will tell you, they're a little bit nervous there on the backstage, but also very excited. And when we present in the webinar, we can't see you, unfortunately, unlike at our in-person events. Therefore, little emoji claps, GIFs, any words of appreciation and support are always well received. So now you know what to do while our speakers will be presenting. And today, it's my pleasure to introduce the first speaker of the day, Anthony Nocella, photography director at Nuuly. Anthony, please join me on stage.
Hi, how you doing?
Hi, I'm great. How are you doing, Anthony?
Great, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's our pleasure, and congratulations on making the top 30 list. Absolutely well deserved.
Thank you, honored.
Yeah, and well, today we have quite a dynamic format where each presenter got about 5 to 7 minutes of time to share what this next big or innovative or inspirational thing is. And Anthony, you've been in this industry for years and you're absolute master of the craft. What is your secret? What allows you to stay inspired and find joy every day in the work that you are doing?
Yeah, I mean, I've been with the full urban brand for 20 years now, and I think the secret is, for me, and what I try to explain to like my younger photographers and digitechs and people getting in there, is that it's a mindset that you have to stay in, and it's a creative mindset. For us, we're an e-com company of clothing, so every day there's a rack of clothes. And you can look at it and shoot it like it's a normal e-com day, front, side, back, or you can take the approach that it's a creative day. Yes, it's a model on a sweep, and you have to figure out a way to put this subject in a rectangle over and over again, and you can make it mundane, or you can have the mindset that it's a creative lookbook, and you're trying to create a collection of images, not front, side, back, but like a beautiful collection of images that kind of inspire your subjects and inspire the people who are shopping on the site. And I think that's something we try to take at heart here in our brand, is that it's a little bit more than just a picture of clothes. And I think the mindset is what keeps me going.
Yeah. And how do you feel this mindset? How does it work with that productivity and always push to get more done, the efficiency and so on? How do you balance it out? And who should it be coming from within the studio? Is it the studio leader, or does it all depend on the individuals who work there?
I'm sure it probably depends on the individuals. For me, it's great when I have a collective team. And I mean, not just a photo team. Right now, it's a very small photo team, but we work cross-functional with other team members. So a lot of collaboration with not just art direction, but also styling and how we approach the day. So there's usually an archetype for every model and every subject. But since we spread the gamut of everything from Free People to Anthro to other labels, like just there's all random labels that we have to do, we have to take a different approach per item, instead of like when you shoot for a specific brand, you can just stay in that lane. So because of this, we have multiple kind of aesthetics and archetypes we have to fit. We have to work as a team collectively, go through the rail, and kind of see like what the inspiration is from styling and what the inspiration is from art direction. And then I take that and kind of use the technical side of our brains to kind of meet in the middle. So like, even though we're being creative, we always still have to think of, like you said before, the production and how do we push product through. So for myself, I kind of think it's like a little bit of an art form, but a really big part of it is a trade. There's still a trade there, and you can still be creative in a trade kind of a world.
100%. And I really like what you mentioned about this different paths. And I know we touched upon that in our prep call. So apart from these different brands mixing together in different ways to create same type of shots, how do you look at these different paths within the photo industry? And if you were to advise younger generation of professionals, so what would you tell about pursuing career in photo industry and how to find the right path for yourself?
Explore all of them. There's nothing wrong with any of them. If you want to be a photographer, the main goal for me as a photographer when I was young was to be able to pay for my lifestyle with photography. As simple as that. I wanted to make my passion into a job. So I tried it all. I found what I liked. I found what I didn't like. You can be a very successful, beautiful wedding photographer, but it's not my aesthetics. So I got into advertising by assisting lots of photographers, got into advertising, and I fell in love with branding. And then when I came into my current brands, I just kind of took the concept of advertising and branding and applied it to a more narrowed down client, which was at that point anthropology. And then we went through the gamut of brands.
Right. And I know we are nearing our dedicated time for our segment, and I have just a couple more questions for you. Mm-hmm. So you've seen many developments and shifts in the industry over the years. And now let's look a little bit further. What do you think is the next big thing that will have a strong impact on what ecom photography looks like?
Well, I mean, I know it's kind of redundant, but there is a touch of AI that will be coming in. I do think that it is not for us what people think AI is. It's not going to be the AI that is creating a person that doesn't exist. It's going to be more of the AI that's going to fix the back end work. I think it's going to be AI that's going to be doing automated color corrections, that's going to be creating shot lists for people, that's going to be taking out the mundane parts of running a studio. And kind of AI, those kind of things. So we have certain products that have certain classes and they have to go through our workflow in a certain way that selects get picked. And a lot of that is still a little bit manual. And I think AI is going to be able to step in and kind of sort our flows a little bit. I don't think that we're ready to start introducing like not real models yet. That's not for us.
That is a super interesting take, especially if you've been on LinkedIn for the past couple of days. I feel like the AI generated campaign by Mango was all over different messages and posts and press. And I know that a few more speakers later today will touch upon generative AI. And I see you're getting applauses from Blake, Sinclair, hello Blake, and Katrina. So definitely your opinion resonates, and how it could not. Thank you so much, Anthony. It's been a pleasure to have such established leader and expert in this industry with us today. Thank you so much. And I hope to see you again soon.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we are moving to our next presenter today. We have as our next guest, Jess Matamoros, Associate Director of Studio Operations at Urban Outfitters. Jess, here. Hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning. Nice to see you.
Yes, likewise. Yeah, and thank you so much for waking up early and starting your day very early to be a part of this webinar.
I'm used to it. I'm in Los Angeles, so it is early here, but it feels good.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely the sun, probably this shining sun helps with the early mornings. Amazing. So, Jess, I know from our prep call that your team has been working on some really cool imagery over the past few seasons, and something that you're in particular proud of your approach, innovative approach, I would say, to mixing the efficiency and the creativity. So please, the floor is yours. Take it away and share with us your knowledge.
Firstly, I am so grateful to have been chosen as one of the top 30 studio leaders. Thank you, Pixelz, for bringing us all together. It's nice to know we're not alone in this crazy world of ecom photography. But I would love to just expand upon an approach we have at Urban. As we have all experienced, our budgets get cut, but the expectations of the studio are still extremely high. So an approach we took at Urban is something we love to call elevated ecom. And I think, Anthony, you kind of touched upon what that is. But for us, it's really pushing the boundaries within our studio, since unfortunately, large-scale campaigns are seemingly a thing of the past. We still get to do them, but the frequency is definitely diminishing. So elevated ecom to us can be either very trend-focused styling, fun props, fun backdrops, I don't know, specific casting, even adding art layers in post is an option, to sort of spice things up. But to do this, it does take away resources from our traditional ecom sets. So where my team comes in as a studio operations team, that is a little bit different than a lot of studio teams, is we really dig into financial reporting and investments to make the call on if something non-apparel warrants an on-model shot, because we know shooting flat photography with an in-house team is essentially free, but versus the on-model cost, it's quite different. So my team will look at on order, on hand, even price point, and make a call and say, hey, we can't shoot this one, but we'll get you a beautiful flat. And our executive team has absolutely loved this, because we've saved a lot of money and resources, and we're able to then dedicate space and time within our ecom sets for these elevated style shoots. So yes.
Yeah. And I know we have a few examples actually of the recent imagery. So
Yep.
I will start with the hoodies and sweatshirts. And so Jess, maybe I'll be clicking through the different slides. And if there anything that you would like to comment about the specific imagery or the production and kind of the behind the scenes of it, that would be great.
So this one was really fun. It feels very authentic to the Urban brand, because the bottom left yellow shirt, that's actually a buyer from Urban who is a customer. So we're adding star filters and gradients, but this was all just a regular ecom set. We took half a day, put all this together, grabbed a women's model, brought her over to the men's set. And this took about 2 hours, and we got some really fun imagery from this shoot.
100%, and feels like very resonates with your audience and shows the dynamic, shows that edginess of the looks of the clothing that you're conveying as a brand. That looks amazing. Yeah. And if just one question while we're still looking at this amazing imagery, you mentioned that your team works a lot with this financial data, and if someone at the studio doesn't have the access to it now, but they would really like to follow your path and try to take that more data-driven approach, who should they refer to internally? Where is the starting point to get started on this path?
Oh, absolutely. I would designate, if you work closely with the buying team, I feel like they would be more than happy to share data with you. I think by design, studios are very insulated from the overall health of the business, to focus on creative. But you know what? I feel like with that missing awareness, a lot of important information gets lost. So if you're able to, at the very least, establish what the top buys are for your season, I feel like that would be a great place to start, until you might find someone who's more familiar with financial reporting.
Right. And so what are the top, let's say, 3 metrics that you're looking at? What are these data points?
So we look at on hand, which is how many units are in inventory. We confirm that an item is not going to mark down because obviously we don't want to waste any money or resources on something like that. We also check price point. An item could have a lot of units on hand, but only cost like $7, and it might not really need an on model shot. And then we also look at on order and selling, because we do, part of my job is I approve any reshoot that comes into the studio. So I'm constantly looking like, is this worth it? Taking in our cost per shot. We say no, and everyone agrees because we've made these educated decisions.
100%. I think that is the absolute key to get the agreement and to get the buy-in, because it's not a personal opinion. It's that this shot was good enough. Now you have the data-driven decision.
Exactly.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Jess. But before I let you go off stage, I have couple rapid fire questions for you where you can choose either or say yes or no, and that's it. So, on location or studio shoots?
Studio shoots.
Great. Using iPhones to shoot videos or photos for e-commerce, yes or no?
No.
And the last one, are virtual models the future?
No, not for urban.
Not for urban.
Customer would absolutely rebel. Just they would not like that.
Yeah, that's a great point about knowing your customer and knowing what their attitudes is and what matters to them. Well, thank you so much, Jess. It was such a pleasure. Thank you for sharing more about your approach, and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed and made notes of the different metrics and of the way Jess is approaching her work at Urban Outfitters. But now it's time to bring on stage. And I want to say to bring back on stage, because we just recently had her at Flow North America, Bimi Ibok, photo studio director at Nogin Studios.
Hello.
Hi, Bimi. It's such a pleasure to see you again, and I'm very excited to learn from you again.
Likewise, happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course, our pleasure. And I know you have the whole speech prepared, so why don't you just take it away?
Sure. So I'm really excited to be here because there are a number of cool things that are happening at Noggin that I figured I'd just share during this time. So we're currently in this state of pushing the creative envelope. We're working on exciting new projects, and we're essentially asking ourselves, how can we do things a little bit differently? How can we kind of revisit our status quo as it pertains to the studio? And one of the questions that we're asking ourselves is, how can we produce content that is impactful, but also cost effective and time efficient? You know, as has been said earlier, the large scale budgets are getting smaller and smaller. And so how can we remain impactful in our visuals? And so, yeah, we want visually impactful, cost effective, and time efficient. But many times for our shoots, we may find that we only have two of these three things. And so one of the tools that we're looking to solve this, to perhaps provide all three, is generative AI. And that term I know can be scary. I was joking with you earlier, Alex, that it's interesting to me that the topic of generative AI can simultaneously be taboo talk, but also the talk of the town. And I think rightfully so, honestly, because for me personally, as a team leader and also a creative, it's important for me to know that our team can kind of feel confident that they can continue to contribute to content creation for our brands. And so, yeah, again, with good reason, it's both taboo talk, but also talk of the town. And so as we're sort of experimenting and exploring this tool, we're finding that our teammates are actually very much an integral part of the process in content creation. I actually have a few examples that we could perhaps pull up to just showcase what we've just been playing around with in terms of generating lifestyle images. So these three images that you see here are a combination of photography, generative AI, of course, and then post-production to refine the output. And it's been really exciting to sort of see how these tools are able to render our products to near perfect accuracy in terms of the product detail. So these are some examples here of what we've done. There are other projects in the works that are, again, in the experimentation phase. We can go ahead and take that down because the next one I don't have examples for. It is in the production process, and so I wish I could share, but just not yet. So it is, one that I'm thinking about is a Halloween photo shoot that we did. And our photographer came up with this gorgeous ghoulish green lighting. The makeup artist did an amazing job. And then our model was just fantastic. She was well cast and her movement was amazing. And so rather than to do a complete 180 with Gen AI, we decided to just use generative AI to create a custom environment for that photo shoot. And so with that example, we're able to see that, okay, there's space for us to utilize Gen AI as a creative tool, as opposed to something that is completely overtaking our process. I think the way that I could liken this, or what I could liken this to rather, is sort of a transformer sort of situation, in that we have different elements that are being combined to sort of create this super robot. That's how I see it in my head, a super robot. And that super robot is magnifying the strengths of each individual component. And so, yeah, that's essentially what we're working on right now. As our team is exploring this too, I think a key part of this entire process is really communication. You know, for me, I'm communicating with my team because we are curious to know, okay, how does this affect our roles? What does this mean for me as a photographer or for the stylist? And so, yeah, communicating with them has been very crucial. Communicating with our IT team and our legal counsel to make sure that while we're playing and experimenting in this sandbox, you know, we're doing so safely and in legal compliance as well. And I think the last thing I would note too about just communicating is that we're simply communicating with our community. You know, my fellow speakers who are on the stage here, all of those who are watching and listening in, having those conversations around this topic. You know, what are the strengths, the limitations, the implications of using this tool for our industry? I think there's a lot of power behind having those conversations. And so it's been exciting for me to just connect one-on-one with other professionals in this industry on that topic. I think one thing I do want to note, as we've seen from Nuuly and Urban Outfitters, it is not a one-size-fit-all approach. You know, not every brand is going to say, okay, yes, we're going to totally take on Gen AI. If it's not a part of your brand ethos, then we don't expect it to be implemented. But I do see in a world in which this might help offset some difficulties or challenges that we're facing in creating large-scale imagery, if you will.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's where we are. I think at the end of it all, honestly, again, for me personally, it's so important for my team to maintain their confidence in their contribution to our content creation. And I think even outside of this industry, the only way that someone can be confident or remain confident is if they're able to consistently learn and be in this perpetual state of learning. And so that's essentially what we're doing here, is just leaning into the tool with this sense of curiosity, just seeing what it could possibly do, so that like our creatives truly have the opportunity to evolve as these different new forms of technology are emerging, be it Gen AI, CGI, whatever the case may be. So yeah.
Whatever that would be.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing what you're working on. And I know that it's been a process, and to fully embrace it, it took a little bit time. And I know you mentioned that you had these conversations with yourself, even whether or not to do or not to do it. Yeah. And I wanted, before we let you go off stage, I wanted to ask you for, let's say, one piece of advice to studio leaders who are in a similar position as you are, how to embrace that, innovation seeking approach, really experimental thinking, and move from just problem solving day to day, this micro problems and micro things that you need to manage on a daily basis. How do you shift to that more open mindset and thinking more forward and like years forward?
I love that. I think it's two things. It's one, it's intentionally carving out time to just research what is happening in the industry, what's currently at the forefront of the industry, and how can I just simply lean into that? So taking time to research what those resources might look like. And then I think also communicating with upper management, the executive team, and seeing, okay, what is at the top of your mind? What are you expecting to implement to sort of push us forward? Because for us at Nogin, that's simply, part of our objective is to remain at the forefront of technological conversations. And so connecting really with your upper management and seeing how you can get ahead of that conversation.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Bimi. It was a pleasure to hear you speak and hear your opinion, and hope we see each other soon in LA or somewhere else in the world.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Well, and our next presenter, I am personally extremely excited that we get to have her here with us today, our youngest top 30 finalist of this year, Megan Bagshaw, until recently studio intern at Gymshark, but now junior photographer at Gymshark. Hi, Megan. Congratulations on promotion. Congratulations on the top 30. Well deserved.
Thank you so much. I'm still quite in shock, to be honest.
How are you doing today?
I'm really well, thank you. Very excited.
Yes, likewise. And obviously, with you kind of making splashes in the industry, and definitely, I think many of us have seen different imagery either shared on LinkedIn from Gymshark accounts or on X, where there would be a slight reference, oh, studio intern at Gymshark should get a raise for this one. So, Megan, just take us a bit behind the scenes of your journey to where you are today, and what do you think led you to this opportunities, and what would be your advice for everybody else?
Okay, so I graduated university last year with a photography degree. Pretty much went straight into an internship here. Was very, very fortunate to have got it. But I think because I managed to get the opportunity, I was like, I need to absolutely do everything I can to make the most out of this, get every piece of knowledge that I can. So it's very much been a learning development of saying yes to absolutely everything, putting myself forward for things that you wouldn't normally expect an intern to do. But I think it's helped for the most part, because although I felt very out of my depths at first, I mean, I've just come out of uni. How am I in the industry, I managed to do that, get this job, and then also prove myself worth being able to stay on. Hence, I got the promotion, thankfully. But it is very much just definitely saying yes to everything that you can.
Yeah, that's definitely a great approach. But how do you make sure that it's the right opportunities and you also don't get overloaded and burned out? Because, there can be an intention, let's just push all that to Megan because she says yes to all this work.
I think it's definitely part of having a good team, having good communication with your team. I'm very, very fortunate in that I've got the most supportive team I think I will ever have here. If I feel like I can't do anything, or even if I need to ask help, like there have been stupid questions that I've had to ask, but it's definitely one of those places where they're like, no question is a stupid question, just ask away. And I think that way you learn more, you have an honest relationship with all of your co-workers, and you can just say, if you need to take a back foot, sorry guys, this one's not me. But it is rare, to be fair, that happens here, because it just doesn't work like that here.
Yeah. And so now with the new role that you have, what is the next big thing for you?
I think that now that I'm junior, I would like to be involved a lot more with campaign shoots. I do all of the ecom at the minute, but I think there's so much room for expansion on my skills here. As you know, like we always are doing campaigns. There's literally one going on right now. I'd say maybe like 4 a month we get. We're very fortunate for that. So I think that's something that I don't yet have the experience on, which I would like to go into. So I think shadowing on those, even just assisting, digging, anything that I can do to get on that, just so I can learn those skills.
Yeah, that's great. And I hope, in a year time or even faster, we get to talk and see you being senior photographer at Gymshark. Amazing. And before I let you go, I have a round of rapid fire questions for you. So yes or no, or choosing one of the available options. So shooting video or photography?
Photography.
Shooting on film or digital?
Digital.
Using iPhones to shoot for e-commerce, yes or no?
No.
Great. And the last one, will social commerce take over the website and the PDP in terms of e-commerce?
No, never. It will always be added here and there, but never take over.
And that being said by the representative of Gen Z. So I just want to highlight this. So PDP and website and ecom is not going anywhere. And yeah, so is the camera. It's staying with us. It's not for iPhones. Awesome. Thank you so much, Megan. It was
Thank
such
you
a
for
pleasure.
Thank you.
Hope to see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. And with that, we have 2 more presenters to go. And our next speaker is Tiffany Tennyson, Associate Director of Studio Operations at Chewy.
Hi.
Hello, welcome. Good morning.
Glad to be here. Appreciate the invite.
Yeah, thank you for making time out of the busy day. And I know that your days can be very busy and the schedule sometimes gets tricky because as you mentioned yourself in our prep call, you work with very demanding talent and you even described it as working with toddlers at scale, which I believe quite many of our viewers can relate. So can you please share a little bit more with our listeners about the challenges it creates for you and how you resolve it in quite innovative approaches?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks again for having me. Demanding talent is certainly one way to put it. We primarily work with pets of all different species. Dogs, cats, ferrets, chickens, you name it, we've probably shot with it. So it's not always easy to get them to do exactly what you want them to do, right? Some of my colleagues work in fashion here, or my co-presenters here, work in fashion, and maybe you can tell the model, shift to the left or do something different or change it up. And that's not the dynamic we have with the animals, and we do it all at scale, right? In a typical ecom fashion. So it certainly creates some operational efficiencies that are typically those core principles, right? Of ecom, do it fast, do it cheap, do it well, right? So our team focuses on pre-production to set the overall team up for success. And this includes extensive note-taking, but in kind of a non-traditional sense. The communications between our on-set team and our scheduling and coordinators who are booking that talent has to be really, really tight. So not only do we have to be concerned with things like size and fit, like you would in fashion, but we also have to think about things like fur length and the color of the coat, or maybe even more importantly, the capabilities. Does this cat like wearing jackets? Is the cat going to scratch a post, right? That's 2 different kinds of cats. Or maybe it's, will the dog sleep on a bed on a set? A set is not a natural environment. Certainly an on-white is not a natural environment. So how do we make sure that the animals are comfortable? And can they do it? Do they have the capability or skill to do it? Will the bird stay on the perch outside of the cage? Right? So these are things that we're just constantly talking through and communicating about and saying, what is the skill or what is the capability of the animal? And then how do we go out and get that? And then how do we do it at scale? So there's so much communication that needs to happen, so many facets that we have to consider when we're booking our talent. So in my opinion, I've got the very best team in the industry at photographing animals at scale. I would put my team up against anybody, which I just love. And we have an incredibly high creative quality bar that they have to hit every single day. So as I'm looking towards the future and considering like, how do we operationalize our workflow even further? How do we improve our speed to market and find those efficiencies while continuing to hit the creative quality bar and letting the animals be animals, right, at the end of the day? So I'm interested in finding ways to develop AI capabilities that can take the volume of feedback and the communications that we're capturing every single day and we're associating with that talent and using it to inform how we go to set. So let me give you an example. Let's just say I know I have 15 dog beds that need to get shot. And I have a bed style guide, right? So that's fairly traditional. And I know how many beds I can get done in a day based on historical data. All right. So we've got lots of great inputs. I have 30 dogs in the database that have the capability of looking relaxed or asleep on a bed because we've tested them or we have this historical knowledge. And of that 30, maybe 15 of those dogs have a coat color that won't compete visually with the SKU. And then I have a team that might be available next Wednesday and Thursday to shoot. All of these inputs are the considerations that we do for every single SKU that comes through the studio. And so my idea, the thought here is, and what we're pursuing is, can AI suggest to the planning team to shoot the 15 dog beds over 2 specific days with Brandon, Sarah, and Kevin on set, leveraging 8 specific dogs with availability, right? synthesizing all of those data points down to here's a suggestion for how we would go to set. For me, this would be a significant reduction of time spent, manual evaluation, planning, things like that. One of my favorite quotes that I love and just resonates with me is Joanna Maszewski, which I probably completely butchered her very Polish last name, is I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so that I can do art and writing, not AI to do my art and writing so that I can do laundry and dishes. And this resonates with me because I don't like either. Laundry or dishes. But for me, thinking about that application or that thought process within our process, the challenge is to leverage AI to do the planning, the organizing, the suggesting, so that our experts, our team can do the photography, the styling, the wrangling of the talent with our incredibly real talent, and we can execute that high quality imagery that we do every single day. So big idea I'm excited to be tackling is taking that
very big idea. I
Yeah,
think everyone
exciting.
listening, who's in the field of AI really needs to take notes. I wonder if probably maybe something like that exists, because it sounds like a big data analysis and just resulting in that solution based on the required criteria on what you're prompting. But definitely super, super interesting.
Thank you.
Tiffany, thank you so much. That
Absolutely.
was definitely a big idea to think about, and to think about how you're running studio. And I think just it can be, I imagine it can be very stressful to work with pets, but at the same time, I think all of us are just like, that's the best job in the world.
It really is. And I always say, guys, if you're having a stressful day, please walk to the dogs on set when they're in between shots and go pet them, and it'll get a whole lot better.
I think both the photographers and the demanding talent will feel better after.
Everybody's happy. Thank you so much.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Tiffany. It was a pleasure. And we are at our last but definitely not least presenter of the day. And it is my pleasure to introduce absolutely amazing photographer, one-person, one-man show studio that creates just absolutely stunning imagery and has amazing personality. And that's all are just the quotes from the nominations that we received for John J. Kelly III, the Senior Managing Photographer at Fresh Direct. And it's my pleasure to have John here with me on stage.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Hello, John. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Amazing. Well, I know that you have prepared quite interesting thoughts and ideas that are very relevant for our current, let's say, I don't want to say uncertain, but kind of turbulent times for the e-commerce industry, given all the technological advancements and developments. So I'm very excited to hear that, just as our viewers.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to everyone for tuning in, and thank you to Pixelz for hosting this. What I want to do right now is kind of discuss how creativity may evolve in the near future. And to do that, I want to provide a little bit of historical context. So the example that I want to show is at least describe, is the period rooms at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. These are reconstructions of spaces that showcase examples of art and craft specific to their time and place. So some examples of exceptional craft on display there include hand-cut mosaics of ancient Rome, hand-painted medieval stained glass, and decorative stone carvings of Renaissance palaces. Now, these crafts over time have lost their cultural and societal relevance, causing their practice to effectively die off. The work still has intrinsic value, and at the very least, it's a testament to the care and skill of the artisans who created them. However, today, I would say it would probably be nearly impossible to have a successful career hand carving 17th century Baroque decorative friezes. So fast forward to today, in our present period, generative AI potentially presents a similar seismic shift in how visual imagery is perceived and in the cultural value placed on images produced by creatives like ourselves. We may reach a point in the not too distant future where consumers will no longer differentiate between images produced wholly by AI and those created by us. And so consequently, I find that businesses may eventually prefer to use AI-generated imagery for expediency and cost efficiency. Some creatives in corporate settings, I feel, are being reduced to mechanical function, more like input-output devices than artisans. So for example, input a brief, output a creative asset. input market research data points, output creative asset. And this simplification and mechanization of these roles makes it less of a logical leap that they might eventually be replaced by AI. So if the goal is to synthesize all available information, visual information, in a dispassionate mathematical way, then we can't best AI generators. They have greater access to visual reference input than any one person can have gained in a lifetime. But you can't connect to anyone on an emotional level only by using cold programmatic statistical analysis of what image subjects, styles, visual elements, etc. will most resonate with viewers. So for example, it's an oversimplification to say, Gen Z statistically responds best to images of cute cats in a dreamy surrealistic style created using soft pastel color palettes. Averaging data points to generate one-size-fits-all creative deeply resonates with no one. No one considers themselves an average or generic person. For this reason, our unique perspective, instincts, judgment, and ability to improvise based on our own lived experience, visual and emotional, are going to be the defining qualities that distinguish us from this technological tool. Now, when I work on a shoot, I'm making dozens of minute decisions that affect the final output, some of which are highly subjective judgment calls. All of them lead me to a final result that ideally conveys what I intend to express. AI has no ability to judge information in this way. It can't know when an output image is just right because it has no inherent intent. It has nothing to express. It still relies on human input to define this. So arguably, for reasons that I mentioned earlier, AI still has the potential to eventually replace some of the tasks we perform and even some of the roles that we currently hold. And like the crafts of antiquity displayed in the period rooms, some of our current crafts may lose their cultural relevance and thus fade into obscurity. That said, a defining quality of being creative and human is the ability to adapt, to fathom inventive solutions to problems, and to execute them instinctively and in a very nuanced and personal way. We will continue to adapt and find the methods and tools, perhaps generative AI included, that we need to express our unique perspectives and to connect to our intended audiences in the ways that suit each of us best. So it's not all bad.
It's not all bad, 100% not all bad. And well, thank you so much for preparing and finishing on such inspirational message. 100% it's about adapting. Well, obviously we can't see into the future, but what is your personal take? So do you, what tasks do you see, let's say, generative AI helping you with in the nearest, 1, 2, 3 years?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, as part of a creative team that's extremely small, one thing that I find it's incredibly useful with, and hopefully this doesn't sound too snarky, but sometimes you get people at an executive level who have an idea for something, or they have kind of a concept and they want it executed in a certain way, and they don't really fully understand the extent of labor that's involved in making something like this happen. So in some cases, generative AI can be very useful in sort of allowing you to concept something so that someone can actually see it in a way that's tangible. And then maybe without expending too much effort on the part of your team, which may be very small and resource constrained, you can kind of show them, well, maybe that's not the greatest idea, but they need to see it to really understand it. And so, that can kind of help speed up the process of sort of going through a lot of creative concepting in a way that's not so resource heavy.
Yeah, for sure. I think the concepting, storyboarding, has received so far one of the widest adoptions, as well as background and obviously the post-production tasks, that's for sure. Well, John, before you go, a quick round of rapid fire questions to wrap up our today's webinar.
Absolutely.
So, shooting on film or digital?
I learned on film, but digital is the way it is. So it shall be.
Yeah. And then shooting ecom or editorial?
I do both. There's a need for both always. So
where is your heart?
I'm going to cop out and say, but my heart is probably in editorial, but my wallet is reliant upon.
Circling back to what Anthony said in the beginning, right? This creative work still pays the bills.
Yeah.
Awesome. Using iPhones to shoot for e-commerce, yes or no?
Never.
We have very strong no for iPhones today. Something to definitely think about. And then shooting video photography.
I rely on both. I came from a film and television background, so I'm going to say my heart is probably with video. But if someone will allow me to do either or both, I'd be happy to do it.
And then to wrap it up, and I know this was the topic, almost was the topic of your talk, is generative AI the future or not?
Certainly part of the future. Whether it's the entirety of the future has yet to be seen, but certainly a not insignificant component of it.
And that's, I think, a very great way to put it, that you can't deny it anymore. It's definitely a part of it. Well, thank you so much, John. It was such a pleasure to hear you speak and to have you with us today, as well as all of the other presenters. And thank you so much as well to all of our viewers. Thank you for all of the comments and staying with us today. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned a thing or two, or just had a portion of inspiration. And you know, you're not alone out there dealing with the challenges of a day-to-day at the studio. There is a huge community out there, and we are always happy to be a part of the conversation, to create these conversations. And feel free to reach out to any of our speakers from today on LinkedIn, connect, continue the talk, ask questions. I'm sure they will really appreciate it, and so will we. Thank you all so much, and have a great day wherever you are. And we hope to see you at our future online webinars or in-person events. Thank you. Have a great day.